My dear students, let me discuss with you now Girish Karnad's Tughlaq. Girish Karnad's Tughlaq is a representation of one of the most important but nevertheless neglected periods of Indian history, the reign of 14th century Mughal Emperor Muhammad bin Tughlaq. It remains till date one of the most turbulent periods of history. This is the first and most significant play in post-independence period to have engaged with the Sultanate period in Indian history. This period brought to an end to the golden age of classical Hinduism and introduced Islam as a dominant force. This is one of the most important phases of Islamic imperialism in India, but it remains neglected in the national imaginary because of the attention given to the later Mughal and British imperialism. In the narrative of the life and achievements of the Sultan, Karnad saw the possibilities of creating a drama about contemporary political turmoil. When he wrote this drama, Nehru was the prime minister, and many critics believe that this uh, drama reflects Nehruvian style of governance. Karnad's Tughlaq is a significant intervention in history as also a site for development of a creative analogy between the past and the present. The contemporaneity ascribed to the historical situation makes the play unique. So, for your short notes, let me just explain to you the major characters of the play. So you will get short notes for 5 marks. For that I am explaining some important characters. First one is Tughlaq. In the play, Tughlaq emerges as a headstrong and idealistic ruler. He is vulnerable and constantly admits his mistakes and allows himself to be punished publicly. He moves his capital to Daulatabad because it is a city dominated by Hindus. This move will further the cause of togetherness and communal unity. Though through this character, the idealism of the Nehruvian era is commented upon. Guilty of killing his father and brother, Tughlaq is often on the defensive when he is questioned of his crime. His uncompromising generosity, sense of social justice, embraces all religion and treats them in an impartial fashion. This character is a device that represents a scathing critique of the nationalist notion of communal harmony and religious coexistence. The very ideals that were valorized before independence but later turned into an anticlimax with the partition of India. The opening scenes reflect the idiosyncrasies and eccentricities of Tughlaq. He contemplates to equate the value of copper coins with the silver dinars. In order to establish himself as a worthy ruler, he exposes himself to public scorn and invites public condemnation. He hastens the process of his own nemesis through a series of badly contrived measures at projecting himself as a tolerant and efficient ruler. His irrational and erratic methods are severely criticized by his courtiers and citizens. He emerges as a shrewd uh, ruler and mercilessly ambitious. He is responsible for the assassination of Sheikh Mohammed, his severe critic, who accuses him of killing his blood relatives and being un Islamic. He stabs Shihabuddin when he tries to conspire against him. He is doomed because of his own failures and becomes an insensitive murderer. The height of insanity is reflected in the later episodes of the play. He later becomes a divided self, suffers from inner turmoil and contradictions. His ultimate isolation in a world turned alien against the tragic dimensions of the play. Tughlaq might be perceived as an overambitious alien emperor who aims to build new cities and empires, subjecting the culture of the people to colonial strain. Each scene represents the progressive degradation and dehumanization of Tughlaq, leading to his tragic downfall. The next important character is stepmother. The stepmother of Tughlaq constantly appears in the earlier scenes of the play. She is torn apart by conflicting emotions. Her overriding concern for her son is in contradiction with her awareness of the fact that he is guilty of parricide, that is, killing his father and brother. She appears troubled and confides in Najib, the courtier and politician. She is consistently projected as an embodiment of rationality and concern. She later murders Nazib in order to save her son from ultimate ruin. Tughlaq orders her to be stoned to death for the unwanted act. Next important character is Aziz. Muhammad is very manipulative, witty, imaginative, secretive, and ruthless. Aziz provides him ironic parallel. Like him, from the very beginning, Aziz is clear about what he is to do in future. In pursuit of realizing his dream to be rich by hook or crook, he manipulates the decision of the government giving compensation to those whose land has been confiscated by the state. He is a Muslim, but in order to get the compensation, he disguises himself as a Brahmin. Thus, he punctures the balloon of king's welfare policies. If Muhammad is confident and everything will be settled after he reaches Dawlatabad, Aziz is also confident of his plans. He tells his friend Azam, "There is money here. We will make a pile by the time we reach Dawlatabad." If Muhammad has disguised his true self and poses to be very religious and benevolent king, Aziz is disguised as a Brahmin, though he is a Muslim washerman, ironically appears as a Brahmin and ends up as a special messenger to the king. He becomes an instrument in exposing the cruelty and corruption prevalent in Muhammad's regime when he refuses to help a woman with a dying son in her lap and asking for help for his medical aid. Aziz expects money from her, knowing full well that her husband is bedridden and she is helpless. Asked by Aziz why he doesn't let her go to the doctor, very stoically he says, "It is a waste of money. I am doing her a favor." For Muhammad and Aziz, politics holds a common interest. Like Muhammad, he also makes use of religion and caste for his personal gains. He knows that even if the Hindu woman is not allowed to leave the camp, she cannot complain against him as she takes him for a Brahmin. Complaining against a Brahmin to a Muslim, according to Brahmanical dogma, will send her to hell, which she never desires. Furthermore, he is cruel like Muhammad in taking life of someone. He kills Ghiyazuddin, starts dancing after that, which shows that he has no regrets of any sort after killing someone. His singing and dancing over a dead body reminds us of the neurotic self of the emperor. After killing Ghiyazuddin and putting on his robes, he asked the horrified Azam, "How do I look? The great grandson of the Caliph?" Indeed, Aziz appears as a shadow or the other Muhammad. It is perhaps because of this parallelism between them that Muhammad pardons him even for his grave mistakes. The next important character is Azam. He is a close friend of Aziz and his partner in the play. Both of them are vagabonds, live mostly by robbery and deception. Aziz is undeniably the more cunning of the two. Azam's actions are staged on a similar scale. Aziz's actions have larger ramifications. They constantly comment upon and analyze the policies of the Sultan and provide a variety of perspectives on the political climate of the play. Next important character is Nazib. He is a politician and a shrewd administrator, a Hindu who later embraced Islam. In most of the scenes, he is seen advising the Sultan on matters of political action and diplomacy. He is an advocate of ruthless political expansion and domination, and presents a perfect contrast to Bharani, the historian. In the words of Sultan, he wants pounds of flesh and blood. He doesn't have the patience to breathe life into these bones. He represents the more rational aspect of Tughlaq's self and is a constant companion in terms of royal political affairs. The next important character is Bharani. He is a historian and a close associate of the Sultan. He witnesses and records history unfolding before his eyes. He radically differs in his opinions from the more rational Nazib and is more interested in looking at events in a relational humanitarian points of view. He is sympathetic and tries his best to save the Sultan from his own whims and fantasies. His stepmother confides in Bharani and advises him to guard the Sultan from his temperament. The next important character is Sheikh Imamuddin. He is a Maulvi and possibly the harshest critic of Tughlaq. He openly proclaims Tughlaq to be un-Islamic and invites his hostility. He gives public lectures and condemns Tughlaq as guilty of parricide, that is, killing father and brother. He tries to influence the general public through his inflammatory speeches deriding the actions of the Sultan. He is later murdered in a cleverly crafted plot of the Sultan. Now let me analyze this play scene-wise. Scene 1. This scene opens in front of the Chief Court of Justice in Delhi, where a group of predominantly Muslim citizens share their views on the political climate of the region. The very Hindu citizens are also involved in the casual exchange of dialogues. They discuss in detail the policies of the Sultan and their several implications. Tughlaq's benevolence to Hindus is critiqued from various perspectives. Tughlaq announces the proposed shift of capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, since Daulatabad had a majority of Hindu population. He projects his magnanimity towards Hindus and appropriates this quality as a political strategy. This decision of his is constantly viewed with disfavor by many of his Muslim subjects. His whimsicality and idealism are openly condemned. Aziz, the foil of the character of Tughlaq, is also introduced in the scene. He appears in the guise of a Brahmin and he wins a case against the Sultan himself. This is a parody of the Sultan's declaration that he can also be acquitted in the court of justice. Aziz traps Sultan in his own noose. He wins the game that Sultan had started in a fit of ambitiousness. Aziz and his close associate Azam are then seen shifting their attention towards making money by deceiving people on their way to Daulatabad, the new capital. Next scene, scene 2. The scene shifts from public space of the court to Tughlaq's chamber in his palace, where he is seen playing chess. The game of chess is a powerful symbol in the play, which could be perceived as a symptomatic of the Sultan's alienation from his surroundings. In most of the important scenes, he is found isolated from the rest of his kingdom and passionately involved in the game of chess. Tughlaq's stepmother reprimands him for his recklessness in matters of his own security. He rebukes him for not initiating action to counter Ainul Mulk's anticipated attack on Tughlaq's kingdom. Muhammad Nazib, the politician, and Ziauddin Bharani, the historian, two important acquaintances of the Sultan, are introduced in this scene. They offer different perspectives on a single issue, and therefore represent conflicting points of view on political matters. While Nazib, the rational, pragmatic, and a shrewd contriver, Barani is full of human sympathy and concern for the Sultan and the kingdom. Nazib is a man of action, whereas Barani is a man of forethought and restraint in courtly matters. Nazib is actively involved in plotting and contriving political strategies and plans for the Sultan. Tughlaq's crime of parricide, that is killing his own father and brother for the kingdom, is mentioned in the scene, and his insecurity is referred to. He murders his own father and brother for the cause of the realization of his political ambition. His stepmother's anxieties over the whimsical nature of Tughlaq are addressed to Barani, in who she confides. She advises Barani to keep Tughlaq away from some of his advisors who might mislead him. Now let us move on to scene 3. Sheikh Imamuddin meets Tughlaq in Delhi, and this meeting turns out to be a strategic point in the play. He is the harshest critic of Sultan and his policies. He openly accuses Tughlaq of parricide and inflames the hatred of his opponents. He is considered to be the chief agent in steering the fires of discontent in the kingdom. Both Sheikh and Tughlaq wait in front of mosque for an anticipated audience. Tughlaq supposedly arranged this meeting to that Sheikh, his harshest critic, could meet his subjects and address them in a gathering. The Sheikh is disappointed as not a single listener turns up at the proposed hour of the meeting. He blames Tughlaq for having craftily managed to keep away his citizens from his address. What appears to be Tughlaq's openness and magnanimity is in fact a cunningly contrived political move. Sheikh accuses him of being un-Islamic and of challenging the central tenets of the religion. Both of them engage in a witty quarrel justifying their own positions. Towards the end of the scene, Tughlaq convinces Sheikh, whose physical attributes resemble those of his, to go counter Ainul Mulk's attack in the guise of the Sultan. He requests him to act as a messenger of peace. The rationale for his decision, in Tughlaq's opinion, was that Ainul Mulk will never proceed when he sees the Sheikh, a holy man, conveying a message of political compromise. Let us move on to scene 4. The stepmother shares her anxieties about Tughlaq with the Sheikh Shihabuddin, another courtier. The sudden and unexpected death of Sheikh Imamuddin is announced in this scene. Imamuddin's death is testimony to the success of Sultan's plans. The Sultan cunningly plots Sheikh's death in the battlefield in a bid to counter Ainul Mulk, and is easily and effortlessly absolved of his guilt. This murder by Tughlaq acquaints the readers with the darker side of his character. His soaring ambition compels him to curb all dissension, and this is a step in that direction. The actual reason for Sheikh's death in the battlefield and Sultan's hand in the murder are explained in some detail by Ratan Singh, who narrates the events to Shihabuddin and says that it was a cleverly conceived murder. Let us move on to scene 5. The scene shifts to a house in Delhi where Shihabuddin and Ratan Singh, the Amirs and Saids, are involved in a discussion that aims to curb the tyranny of the Sultan. The Amirs attempt to influence Shihabuddin by taking into account the adverse effects of Sultan's policies on them. They project the Sultan as un-Islamic and implore Shihabuddin to act on their behalf. They reveal the underbelly of the Sultan's seemingly tolerant nature. The Sultan had prevented the citizens from attending Sheikh's address even as he was waiting in front of the great mosque and getting disappointed as they did not turn up for the gathering. Fires of discontent about the Sultan's tyrannical behavior and despotic domination are seen to soar high in this scene. The proposed shift in capital from Delhi to Dawlatabad is vigorously debated. In the opinion of the Amirs, this shift is a track to disempower them, since Dawlatabad is a place with the majority of Hindu population. The Amirs, along with Ratan Singh, successfully managed to persuade Shihabuddin to engage in a plot of the murder of the Sultan. It is decided by common consensus that Tughlaq could be murdered on the day of his Darbar Ikas at the time of prayer. Although Shihad strongly opposes such a move, he eventually agrees to the plan. The plan is presented in advance the cause of advancing the cause of Islam. The murder of the Sultan is presented as an act of deliverance from tyranny to insecurity. Towards the end of the scene, Shihab is still in two minds about the appropriateness of the proposed act of murder. Scene 6. The Amirs meet the Sultan for the Darbari cause. The various issues are taken up for discussion and negotiation. The Sultan announces that the copper currency would be introduced in his kingdom and that it will have the same value as silver dinars. The move further disappoints the Amirs. Shihabuddin advises the Sultan not to move to Dawlatabad as it might invite the hatred of many of his citizens. The Sultan remains adamant about the proposed shift and doesn't listen to the suggestion made by Shihab. The Amirs, along with the Shihab, initiate the plan for the murder by the time it is called for prayer, but are immediately held captive by Sultan's Hindu soldiers. Shihabuddin is mercilessly stabbed by the Sultan himself in a fit of rage. Tughlaq emerges as a brute, merciless murder in the scene. Any amount of sympathy that the readers might have had for him in the earlier scenes is lost after this episode. He announces that the dead bodies of all the conspirators must be hanged publicly for people to learn a lesson. He also bans all prayer in his kingdom, but Nazib advises him to suspend all prayer till the anticipated arrival of Ghiyasuddin Abbasid, a descendant of the Caliph. Now, scene 7. The setting of this scene in the route of from Delhi to Dawlatabad, where Aziz, still dressed as a Brahmin, swindles innocent citizens on their way to the new capital and makes money out of it. Aziz is presented as a wise and cunning person. He lives by cheating others of their money. He manipulates the orders and decisions of the Sultan and creates fear among people in the name of law. When Azam questions him, he answers, "You have been in Delhi for so many years and you are stupid as ever. Look at me, only a few months in Delhi and I have discovered a whole new world. Politics, my dear fellow, that's where the future is. Politics. It's a beautiful world, wealth, success, position, power, yet it's full of brainless people, people with not an idea in their head." He sufficiently justifies his actions and invents new methods of cheating fellow citizens with every changing circumstance. Next is scene 8. The scene quickly shifts to Dawlatabad, the new capital. The two gatekeepers guarding the fort comment on the progression of the event in the way to Dawlatabad. The family of the older official died on the way and he considered himself to be unfortunate enough to have survived this calamity. They discuss the rather unhappy and serious state of affairs in the fort. Tughlaq suddenly arrives on the spot and opens his heart out to the young soldier. "You are just 19? Nice age. An age when you think you can clasp the whole world in your own palm like a rare diamond. I was 21 when I came to Dawlatabad first and built this fort. I supervised the placing of every brick in it, and I said to myself, one day I shall build my own history like this, brick by brick." His memory of the past, he had arrived with the citizens in Dawlatabad. He was overflowing with hope and enthusiasm, which eventually died out. His his state of mind is exposed in the same. He suffers from um, lack of sleep and inner agony. The news of armies marching towards his kingdom unnerves him. He confides to Bharani, the historian, who provides timely advice to him by suggesting that it is high time he considered giving up the ruthless bloodshed and murder. The scene ends with the shocking news of sudden murder of Nazib, the courtier and a close associate of Tughlaq. Next is scene 9. Aziz and Azam wait for goods which were supposed to arrive soon. They discuss various methods of making a living by cheating people, and Aziz is exposed to be mischievously intelligent. Aziz orders Ghiyasuddin Abbasid, a person claiming to be the descendant of Khalifa, to be kidnapped. A man arrives with the goods, that is Abbasid, and hands him over to Aziz. Aziz then murders him and dresses himself as Ghiyasuddin Abbasid, disguise which forms an integral part of the theatrical techniques used in the play, is once again used to magnify the theme of parallelism between Aziz and Sultan. Aziz once again cleverly manages to manipulate the orders of the Sultan. He makes the best strategic use of the political climate of Dawlatabad and steps in the disguise of a holy man who was invited by the Sultan. The observance of prayer would only be resumed after the arrival of this much awaited guest. Let me move on to scene 10. The stepmother questions Tughlaq and reprimands him for his erratic and illogical behavior. The proposal of equating the value of copper coins and silver dinars had led to a huge problem. Around 500 carts of fake coins had to be exchanged for silver dinars, and the stepmother fears this might adversely affect the economy. Tughlaq is disturbed by the death of Nazib, his advisor in political matters. He orders many of the amirs and their families to be killed for not being able to reveal the name of the murderer. On hearing these innumerable deaths, the stepmother reveals the fact that she had Nazib poisoned to death as she apprehended further violence. Tughlaq is further agonized by this revelation. He is torn apart and becomes mentally unstable. He orders her to be stoned to death for her crime. Tughlaq is further isolated from his surroundings. He goes to the extent of even murdering his stepmother, one of the very few people close to him. He appears to be helpless. God in heaven, please help me. Please don't let me go out of hand. My skin drips with blood and I don't know how much of it is in mine, how much of others. I started in your path, Lord. Why am I wandering naked in the desert now? I started in search of you. Why have I become a pig rolling in this gory mud? Arise me, clean me, cover me with your infinite mercy. I can only clutch to the hem of your cloak and with my bloody fingers and plead. I can only beg, have pity on me. I have no one but you now, only you, only you, you. Barni announces that the descendant of the Caliph had arrived and it is time for resuming prayers in the kingdom. Next is scene 11. The citizens do not rejoice on hearing the news of the arrival of the holy man. They are further confused because of their opinion. Prayer is not a befitting solution for death or famine. People have been mercilessly murdered. Many others have starved to death in the long run. Prayer can no more save their starving frames. Tughlaq welcomes Abbasid, who is Aziz in disguise. He uses high-flown words and honorary titles for him, which seen in the context of the play sound hilarious because we know that this is not Abbasid but Aziz in disguise. A Hindu woman who lost her child on the way to Daulatabad recognizes Aziz, but she is silenced by the crowd. Riots follow this episode, since this is supposed to be yet another cleverly contrived measure at defeating the will of the citizens. Scene 12. Azam makes plans for escape from the palace with Aziz. Aziz resists these attempts because he believes he is comfortably placed in Sultan's custody. Moreover, Azam's sudden disappearance may rise to questions. Azam voices his fear of being recognized, whereas Aziz is contented with these circumstances. Azam realizes the seriousness of the situation and pleads with Aziz to escape, but Aziz is confident enough not to even conceive of anything like this. Scene 13, this is the last scene. Unexpected assassination of Azam brings Aziz to the Sultan. His identity is questioned and Aziz seems to be caught. Aziz cleverly absolves himself of all the crime by eloquently arguing that he has been the true disciple of the Sultan, since he has unflinchingly observed each and every order of his. He was a disciple who closely imitated the actions of the Sultan himself, obeyed every bid of his, and stood by every law. He reveals the fact that when the Sultan declared the oneness of all religions, he, a common Dobi, was the first to file a suit against the Sultan in the disguise of a Brahmin. He then produced fake currency and obeyed the new law. He plundered people on their wealth and belonging on the way to Daulatabad. Exhausted of all this, he killed Basid and appeared in the robe or in the dress of the holy man. On being asked what punishment would be the most appropriate for him, he requests the Sultan to promote him to the post of an officer. The Sultan, amazed at his genius and his deeds, appoints him the official to Deccan. Even Bharani, the only surviving companion of Tughlaq, leaves him. Tughlaq's isolation is complete. He is a different being altogether. As Tughlaq tries to get forbidden sleep, a call for the prayer is heard and he falls asleep. And after the prayer, Tughlaq gets up, confused from his deep sleep. This is how this drama ends. As I said before in the beginning of my presentation, Tughlaq is a Kannada drama written by Girish Karnad. It was written in 1965 when Nehru was the Prime Minister in India. Many critics felt that it was a critic or a parallel with Nehru. Tughlaq is compared to Nehru because of Nehru's a lot of policies which backfired. In the same way how Tughlaq changes his capital from Delhi to Daulat, again he decides to come back to Delhi. So and again changing the currency from silver dinar to copper coins. And many people today compare him to even the present government. So how denotification, how a lot of